Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank the members and visitors here tonight. I greatly appreciate the time you've taken out of your busy schedules to be here, and I know many of you have somewhere else to be. My decision to enter Parliament was not based on an idle whim or in pursuit of a job with conditions of employment that were more attractive compared to my previous life. I entered Parliament because of a concern that the outstanding lifestyle that most people in our great state enjoy is not guaranteed for the future. I felt that my background and experience would enable me to make a positive contribution to this important subject. I've greatly enjoyed my time as a parliamentarian and am grateful for the opportunity to carry out this role. After I entered Parliament, I had the great fortune to meet the late Harry Hoffman. Harry, his two sisters, his mother and father were interred in Auschwitz in 1944. Only Harry and his father survived. After a long and difficult path, Harry arrived in Western Australia, marrying Sylvia and ultimately becoming a successful businessman. Harry told me about a book written about his life titled "Hate Never Sat at My Table." Harry explained to me that hatred is usually at the core of evil in a society. People feel entitled to do unconscionable things when it is fuelled by hatred. That is why we should never allow ourselves to hate. That sentiment resonated strongly with my own beliefs, and I have consciously applied it to my life in politics. Politics can be bruising and polarising. Sometimes people say rotten things. Whilst you may feel hurt or disappointed, if you allow your response to manifest as hatred, in the end you are the only loser. Every member who comes into Parliament mentions that it's a privilege to serve their community, and that is certainly my experience. I've lived in the Cottesloe electorate. I lived in the Cottesloe electorate for 30 years before I entered Parliament. Cottesloe is a much more diverse community than many in this chamber realise. Cottesloe electorate has around 50% more social housing than Rockingham. It has a disproportionately large percentage of medium and high density housing at 43% of total dwellings. It has been a joy to interact with and help people in my community. The surprise has been how much more there was to learn about my community. Many of you know that I love to learn new things, and there is no better job in the world for learning than this one. It has been rewarding being able to assist people in need and to provide a voice for people who feel they are not being heard by government. One of the absolute privileges of being a Member of Parliament is that you are given access to many places and experiences not generally available to others. You get to interact with our diverse ethnic communities, attending the most marvellous and colourful events and ceremonies. You have the opportunity to interact with the many wonderful groups that add colour to the fabric of our community and give meaning to many lives. A particularly memorable interaction was the Chihuahua Dog Rescue Association, who were kind enough to visit my office a couple of years ago. You're able to attend school events which always leave you with a great sense of optimism that the future of our society is in good hands. You get the opportunity to visit communities across the state and learn about their triumphs and trials. You get to visit businesses and industries to find out what they are doing and how you can help them to thrive. The other aspect of parliamentary life that I've greatly enjoyed has been Parliament itself. Parliament is sometimes a harsh school with a steep learning curve with public and severe consequences for missteps. That aside, it was a pleasant surprise to me to understand how important the role of opposition is in our system of government. A significant amount of parliamentary time is given to the opposition to prosecute their arguments and scrutinise the government. The society we live in is a consequence of our public institutions. There are many nations in the world that enjoy abundant natural resources just like we do. However, very few of those nations have built the overwhelmingly safe and prosperous communities that we enjoy. In very large part, our society is a consequence of what we do in this Parliament, along with the role played by our federal colleagues. What we do in one day doesn't usually change the world much. However, what we do over 10 to 20 years largely defines the society we live in. That greater outcome is a result of what we do every day, which is why we must treat every day as important. I personally find that I sometimes find people in the community who don't recognise the critical importance of this institution to our whole society and the good work done by members. Perhaps we do ourselves a disservice by the focus that we have on question time. Question time is deliberate theatre. Got you, got your back. However, question time does not represent the great bulk of what we do in this and the other place. It creates an impression that we are constantly at loggerheads with each other, being critical of everything the other proposes. I haven't done the statistics, but I would estimate more than 90% of all legislation goes through this place with the support of the opposition. The work done during the committee or consideration in detail stage of bills is the most important work we do, and it is critical to ensuring the best legislation leaves this place. It is critical to ensuring that lawyers and judges understand precisely what Parliament intended when the laws were made. It's critical to ensure that unintended consequences are revealed and repaired. Whatever noise is coming from outside, I exhort all continuing members and those new members entering the next Parliament to be proud of the pivotal role you play in ensuring a safe and prosperous future for our state. One of the other great delights in my time here has been as a member of committees. I've served on a number of committees. The Joint Standing Committee on Delegated Legislation, the Economics and Industry Standing Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, the Joint Standing Committee on Audit, the Procedure and Privileges Committee and the Community Development and Justice Standing Committee, which I chaired. The committees are the opportunity to do the detailed analysis of important issues that affect our community. It is the chance to get to know members as people, not just the opposition sitting on the other side of the chamber. Overwhelmingly, the output of committees is bipartisan and the result of collaboration and cooperation between all members. Our Parliament is blessed to have outstanding staff to aid the important work of those committees. As I've mentioned before in this place, these are the people who are the backbone of our work and ensure that we do our work thoroughly and properly. I thank all the people I've worked with on the various committees during my time here, both members and parliamentary officers, for their good company, stimulating discussion during inquiries and deliberations. And whilst on the topic of staff contributions, I also wish to thank the outstanding staff in Parliament House. I've always made sure I attend the annual staff recognition function because I respect and am grateful for the role that you play in making our lives ordered and effective. Thank you for your good work, good humour and good company. I do want to especially mention the latest inquiry of the Community Development and Justice Standing Committee, which I chaired and which was mentioned by the member for Mount Lawley. Our latest inquiry examined the options available to survivors of institutional child sexual abuse in Western Australia who are seeking justice. I don't feel I am breaching any particular confidence to say that the inquiry topic was initiated by the member for Bassendean, the Honourable Dave Kelly, who had a real passion for the topic. I inquired as to why he felt so strongly about it, and his answer to me was an exemplar of what is best about the role of a local member and Member of Parliament. He was contacted by a constituent who'd been sexually abused as a child in care and did everything he could to assist this person. He subsequently became a champion for other people whose lives had been destroyed by abuse in institutions. When the member first suggested the inquiry topic, I thought, like many, that the subject had been well exposed during the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse, which finished in 2017. What he understood very clearly, and what our inquiry revealed, that was far too many victims of abuse had not received justice and that much more needed doing. The committee subsequently made a number of important recommendations, most of which have already been adopted or are under active consideration by the government, and I am absolutely sure that the continuing members will carry the flag for the full implementation of the recommendations. Another part that has been extremely fulfilling has been my shadow portfolio areas. We're a small team on this side and we each carry a big workload. The opportunity to learn and promote ideas in so many different areas such as water, energy, state development and small business has been invigorating. I'm particularly proud that I was the first person in Parliament to hold the portfolio for hydrogen, something that the government later adopted as a ministerial role. I grew up in simple circumstances and I've had the most wonderful life, enabled by 2 loving parents, an excellent state school education, free university and a fulfilling career. I have 6 children and I hope to have a mob of grandchildren. It's my great fear that my children, and more particularly my grandchildren and their generation, will not have the same opportunities in life that I have enjoyed. The lifestyle we enjoy is overwhelmingly dependent on the primary mining sector. We are currently experiencing the largest resources boom in the state's history. We are the single largest source of Australia's wealth and are one of the one of the greatest trading states of the world. Whilst it seems that this can last forever, our economy is much more fragile than many suppose. Outside major global conflict, our fortunes could change very suddenly. The member for Cannington and I recently attended and presented papers at a critical minerals conference in Japan that included delegates from around the world. Whilst many believe that critical minerals will provide a secure future for our economy going forward, there are some serious threats to that outcome. Particularly as a result of COVID supply disruptions and also escalating global security concerns, all countries have a heightened awareness of their dependence on China for the supply of the majority of metals necessary for a modern industrial economy and modern warfare. Consequently, every industrialised economy is seeking alternative supplies outside China. This imperative has fuelled an explosion of exploration for critical minerals in Western Australia, with several new projects being proposed. The revelation from the conference in Japan was that almost every country is favouring developing projects inside their own borders. They are looking to subsidise and/or introduce tariffs to protect their domestic production. That view was reinforced at an LNG conference I attended in London, which had 350 attendees from pretty well every part of the world. There was extensive discussion amongst delegates about the likelihood of green tariffs to protect domestic industries moving to higher cost renewable energy. One interesting aside coming out of the conference was that the renewable energy transition will substantially increase the need for natural gas usage. Industry experts are forecasting that global natural gas production will need to increase by at least 50% by 2050. This is largely driven by the need to provide gas turbine backup to underpin intermittent renewable energy. Whilst there has been a lot of media attention and general political speculation about the intentions of the President-elect of the United States, the likely reality is that regardless of what happens there, we are rapidly moving towards an era of protectionism around the world. Our economy is largely dependent on exports. We may find inefficiently produced overseas domestic mineral sources will displace lower-cost critical minerals from Western Australia. In addition to that risk, and as was pointed out by the member of Willagee some time ago, there is a high likelihood that China's apparently insatiable appetite for our iron ore may wane in the not-too-distant future. This is driven in part by a likely slowdown in the pace of economic development, but also the rapid accumulation of scrap steel in China. Recycled scrap will increasingly displace iron ore imports. This issue is compounded by additional supply coming on stream in Africa and elsewhere. There is no new major market for iron ore beyond China, and it is reasonable to expect that iron ore prices will not continue to achieve the high levels we have become accustomed to. Thus, it is imperative that we utilise our current wealth to effectively develop opportunities to sustain our prosperity in the future. That inevitably means that we need to focus on new industries and deliver greater value from existing industries. One key opportunity is downstream processing. Both sides in this chamber claim that as a priority. Unfortunately, the reality on the ground is that we are seeing a major loss of downstream manufacturing in our state. Over the past 8 years, we have seen the shutdown and demolition of the BP oil refinery, the mothballing of the Alcoa Kwinana alumina refinery, the mothballing of the Ravensthorpe nickel operation and the mothballing of BHP's entire nickel business. These businesses accounted for many billions of dollars of export income and tens of thousands of jobs. There is a high probability that the mothballed facilities will never restart. There was considerable optimism around the rapid expansion of downstream processing of lithium. However, this has taken a dramatic downturn due to persistent low prices for lithium products. It is readily apparent that we need a major rethink if we are going to achieve the dream of more extensive downstream mineral processing. This needs to cover every aspect affecting industry: exploration, efficient approval timelines, sensible regulatory controls and affordable and reliable energy. There has also been great optimism about the ability to harness our considerable renewable energy resources to underpin a transition away from fossil fuels. Many of you know it's a topic I'm keen on. Despite this optimism, the progress has been slow. In part, this is due to a collision between well-meaning aspirations and the combined laws of physics and economics. There are some factors that are in the direct control of the state government. The first is the time taken for companies to obtain approvals required to progress projects. The second is critical supporting infrastructure. One critical piece of infrastructure is the proposed industrial estate at Oakajee, which I know the Premier is fond of, and that's currently just a paddock. This proposed estate is arguably the single largest opportunity to grow downstream manufacturing in the state. The other critical infrastructure is adequate power line connections to the Western power grid. Whilst outside the direct control of the state Labor government, there is an overarching existential threat to all downstream manufacturing in the whole of Australia, including Western Australia. That is the federal Labor government's 43% emissions reduction target by 2030, with an attendant massive carbon tax for non-compliance. No major downstream energy-intensive manufacturer in Australia has any hope of achieving this target by 2030. Unless it is urgently modified, this law is likely to result in the closure of nearly every major downstream energy-intensive manufacturer in Australia, including Western Australia. The aspiration of the law is a noble one, but the legislated time frame is unachievable. The great irony is that the shutdown of energy-intensive manufacturing in Australia will almost certainly result in an increase in global carbon dioxide emissions. Production of metal is driven by demand, not supply. The supply shortfall caused by industry closure in Australia will be taken up elsewhere. Data published by the Western Australian Chamber of Minerals and Energy shows that nickel produced from nickel pig iron, sourced from Indonesia, has a carbon footprint 6 times greater than that of nickel produced in Western Australia. That is reflected in other metal sectors. Hence, we will destroy hundreds of thousands of jobs in Australia, lose many billions of dollars of export income, whilst global carbon emissions will be substantially increased. The mythology of a green premium has been exposed by the change in nickel buying patterns from Europe. Several European nations have indulged themselves lecturing Australia on the need to achieve reduced carbon emissions. Despite this apparent concern for the environment, nickel sales from Indonesia to Europe have increased from 1,000 tonne per year to almost 90,000 tonne per year in the last financial year. Lower prices are quite clearly a higher priority than their vocal concern about carbon levels. All the more important that our collective task in this parliament must be to protect existing industries and develop new industries to replace lost income elsewhere. I think the Minister for Planning and Housing would be disappointed if I did not mention the issue of increasing housing density in my electorate and the overall issue of housing supply in the state. Most people should have a reasonable aspiration to own a home. Unfortunately, that's becoming an impossible dream for many. I don't have time to revisit my debates on this topic in detail. Suffice to say, whatever other factors exist, the responsibility to ensure affordable housing sits at the feet of a state government. The principal factor controlling the price of housing is the availability of land. The government has total control over this factor. Otherwise, ensuring that government-controlled services such as power and water can be connected in a reasonable time and for a reasonable cost is another major factor. Ensuring that the government's capital works program doesn't unfairly compete for construction workers is also extremely important. What has never had any significant impact on the supply of housing has been local community interplanning decisions. As I pointed out in this place, we could deliver over 30,000 new residences in a year just a few years ago under the old planning laws. Under the new planning laws, which were apparently the solution to the supply problem, the state is struggling to deliver 18,000 new residences in a year. The average completion rate of 26,000 residences has not been achieved since 2016. I'm more than fascinated to hear the rhetoric from the property development industry representatives. Recently, an article appeared quoting the Property Council November 2024 report, which stated that since 2020, over 12,550 apartments had been approved for construction, but only 2,140 had been completed or started. By their own admission, the supposed red tape had been bypassed because all of those apartments have been approved, but 10,410 had not commenced. It's quite clear that planning approvals have nothing to do with the supply of houses. Not only are fewer residences being built under the new laws, but a smaller proportion of apartments are being built relative to houses under the new laws. This is despite the fact that more apartment living is touted as the answer to our terrible housing shortage. A handful of property developers making a lot of money in my and nearby electorates is not and never will be the solution to our housing problem. We need more land made available in Perth. We need to stop this hyper-focus on turning Perth into a mega city and focus much more on allowing people to live safe and fulfilling lives in the rest of our vast state. Property developers don't like communities having a say in planning decisions. Their open contempt for councils, councillors and the communities having any say at all is plain for all to see whenever they broach this topic. Whilst property developers may see themselves as the ascendant authorities on all things to do with planning, it is important to remember that their primary concern is their own profit. The local communities are the ones left to deal with the outcomes of poor planning decisions. That is why they must have a say before decisions are made. All sides of politics, and I mean all sides of politics, must recognise the corrosive influence of property developers on our political processes and stand up for their constituents and not donors. There are many people who have helped to make my task easier. I thank the staff who assisted me in my electorate and the leader's office. The relationship between a politician and their staff goes much further than a normal working relationship. They are your confidant, they are your muse, your counsellor and your champion. I am very grateful for the help and support that all my staff have provided for me during my time in Parliament. The small size of our team on this side of the chamber has meant a much greater workload for everyone involved, including the staff. Adam Benkovic, who's at the rear of the chamber now, who staffs the front desk in my electorate office, has the patience of a saint in dealing with constituent issues. In particular, the effort he made providing emotional and practical support to constituents and others during the COVID epidemic was Herculean. Michael Huston and Tony Papaphilis have a passion for good policy and have made many of my contributions in this place look much better than they otherwise would have. Michael, Tony, Diana Todorowski, Ned Rosethorn, Jack Galeese and Emilio Garcia were towers of strength in the furnace of the leader's office, something the member for Vass knows a little about. I also thank the Liberal Party and the Parliamentary Party for their support over the years. Given our limited numbers, it has been no small task over the past 4 years. Each member of the opposition has carried a huge workload, and I am proud of the collective job we have done. I've been a member of the Liberal Party for over 36 years. I wasn't party political in my youth, but my involvement in student politics at UWA in my postgraduate years convinced me that the Liberal Party best represented my views. For those on the other side, you can blame the member for Bassendean and the Honourable Sue Ellery for me being here today. A special thank you to the hundreds of Liberal Party branch members who have assisted me with my election campaigns and elsewhere. These are the unsung heroes who never ask for reward, are always ready to help. They do it because they care about the society they live in and are prepared to sacrifice their own time to support our great party. As I've mentioned publicly, I was disappointed that I was not pre-selected to run in the seat of Cottesloe at the next election. That said, I still believe that the Liberal Party is the best party to govern our state with our coalition friends, and hope that comes to pass in March next year. I especially want to mention the member for Vass, Libby Merton. Libby will make an outstanding leader for the state of Western Australia, and I certainly hope that that comes to pass. Thank you to Brett Christian and the Post newspaper for giving me a voice on local issues. Brett is an outstanding journalist, and his passion for his community is reflected in the high reputation of his newspaper. This is the bit I deliberately put last. I especially want to recognise my family members here and elsewhere tonight. When you enter political life, it doesn't only affect you, it has a big impact on your family. They feel every slight made against you and have no capacity to respond. I've had two political lives. The first one was as a senior office holder and then state president of the Western Australian Liberal Party during a very tumultuous time for the organisation. The other has been my 7 years as member for Cottesloe. Any of you who know me will know that my family is the most important part of my life. I was blessed with two loving parents, Peter and Jean Honey, who sacrificed their own comforts in life to ensure that their children enjoyed the opportunities that they never had. My brothers and sisters, Kathleen, Richard, Peter and Margaret, have provided me with love and support and encouragement throughout my whole life. You never know when this is going to happen. They've never judged but always loved, and I'm grateful for their love and support. Finally, and most importantly, I thank my wife Robin and our children Elizabeth, Catherine, Peter, David, Michael and Rebecca. They have been the hostages to my political career. Outside the unusual and onerous time impacts, one of the great misfortunes of a life in politics is that your family become fair game for community and media attention. It was the major factor I considered before I took this role. Ordinary things that people do become extraordinary and worthy of media attention. It places an extra burden on every aspect of their lives, despite the fact they did not sign up for the job. I've always been an active parent, but the irregular life of a politician means that parenting time is compromised, and you don't have time to be available to be present as much as you would have liked. I thank them for their understanding, perseverance, love and support. I've got to get through the rest.
Pause and take your time. Have a sip of water.
Yeah, I might just blow my nose, sorry.
Yeah, just pause. Yep.
We'll cut this bit out of the video. In particular, I thank my wife Robin for her love and support, for her wise and cautious counsel, and for ensuring that my irregular schedule has not impacted my family. Robin and I have been blessed with our family, and now we have the added delight of two grandchildren, Josephine and Ravi. They are the new loves of my life, and I intend to make the most of every moment I have to enjoy time with them and my future grandchildren. I've not decided my direction after Parliament. I've been fortunate to have had a diverse and fascinating career thus far, and I hope that continues post-Parliament. My house has an accumulation of 30 years inadequate maintenance, so that is going to move up the priority list. To end, and it's to you, I thank my colleagues from both sides of the House for your friendship, your collegiality, and wish you best for the future. Even though we may not have agreed all the time, I have the greatest respect for the roles that you all play for our community and caring for our community. I've greatly enjoyed my time in this role, and I'm satisfied I've given my total commitment to it. I'm looking forward to my future with optimism. Thank you.
ahead.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you. Cheers. Cheers, mate. Thanks, mate. Thank you. Thanks, mate. Yeah, thanks, Minister. Thanks. Cheers, mate. Yeah, thanks for coming. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, James. Yeah, thanks, Minister.